New polling data from Global Info Analytics, which shows that NPP candidate in the recent Assin North by-election lost from a winning position because the electorate voted their conscience, even though they were given inducement by both parties. The NDC's James Jachi Kwesi benefited massively from claims that he was being persecuted by government. It is part of many factors which informed the NDC's victory in the poll. Surely we'll be joined by the executive. In fact, we're being joined by the executive director for the Global Info Analytics for a deeper understanding of these issues here. Mr. Musa Dankwa is joining us via Zoom. Grateful to you, sir, for joining us here. In fact, we know that this has been a lot of work to arrive at this particular decision. But first of all, share with us the side of this poll and how the findings impacted the elections.
Right, thank you very much. Usually, exit polls are conducted on the same day as the elections are ongoing. But for our unique situation, if we had done that, we wouldn't have had a chance to be truthful to us because of our peculiar circumstances. So we went back to our Assin North after the elections and engaged the voters to see why they voted the way they voted and who actually voted. So we sampled about 543 voters who actually voted that day from the constituency. We covered 6 out of the 18 electoral areas as part of this exit poll. And we have 95% confidence level for the poll and a margin of error of 4.18%. And the interviews were conducted on the 7th July, just last Friday, in the constituency. Now, the overall finding of the poll is that voters took money from both parties, money, inducement, and all sort of things that you can imagine. 96% of people we interviewed said they either witnessed the vote buying in the form of cash, farm tools, bicycles, motorbikes, etc., to influence them to vote for them, for those parties. Only 4% did not hear that. And for those that we interviewed, 92% said that they personally took some incentives or inducement from the political parties, compared to 8% who did not take anything from the parties. And then 15% of the people we interviewed were saying that they took money from NPP party, 13% took money from NDC, and 72% took money from both parties. Mm-hmm. It means that, I mean, this confirms the allegations and all sort of things that were being said before the election and during the election. So it's clear that vote buying went on. And this is the first confirmation from the voters' own mouths.
Okay, interesting. But we had over 30,000 voters on the day. You got 500. If someone is having trouble reconciling 30,000 and 500, how do we get that person to appreciate that, well, this sample size is quite representative of the numbers of people who voted?
Actually, what they should be bothering about is the confidence level and the margin of error. I mean, we fixed the confidence level to give us the margin of error, and that determines the sample size we need to engage in the constituency. We can't interview everybody out of that 1,000. We must pick a sample, and the sample that we pick will give us 95% confidence that if you go throughout and interview everybody, the results you will get will be within the margin of error. So it is statistically acceptable for that sample size.
Okay. Now, according to your finding, you say that the final poll before the election suggested that 35% of likely voters were NPP, 42% were NDC, and 13% were floating voters. However, on the election day, 43% of voters were NPP, increase of 8%, while 54% were NDC, an increase of 12% for enthusiasm gap advantage to the NDC. What could have accounted for this?
A number of things. I think we noticed that a lot more people who were in undisclosed were perhaps NDC guys. They were not disclosed. But once you come to the election and votes are over, you can now decide comfortably to say whether you were NPP, you were NDC. And also the turnout was probably higher from the actual result than the polling estimated. And you could see that there were more NDC who came out to vote than MPP.
Interesting. If that's the case, can there be an argument that, well, during the general election, the same factors cannot be the situation?
Look, I would say that it will, because it's coming from a swing constituency.
Okay.
It is a sign that MPP could struggle in terms of turnout or the advantage in terms of enthusiasm gap. NDC clearly has enthusiasm gap, and that has been shown in many of the polls we've been doing. That you can see NDC hitting around 95% or so for their own candidate, whereas MPP is around 70% or 75%. So that is something that we expect. If MPP doesn't solve, it will carry them through the 2024 elections. And also, in terms of the vote buying, I think Assin North will send a strong signal that vote buying would not work.
Yeah,
I'm praying that.
We'll get there. We'll get to the vote buying. We'll get to the vote buying bit. But you again say that floating voters, where Charles was doing well in the poll, did not bother to show up. Only 2% of the 13% showed up. Secondly, young voters 18 to 24 and 25 to 34, which Charles was winning by an average of 11% and constituted the largest voting bloc, did not bother to show up to vote. And those who showed up ended up voting for James Gyakye by landslide, 23% margin. So it means that the younger age were not favoring him?
No, you see, there were those age group that were probably running around and making noise and probably taking the goodies.
Okay.
And they didn't bother to come and vote. And for some of them may not even have the vote at all, because we have seen that EC hasn't had any registration since 2020. So some of these guys may not even have votes. So when you have younger voters solidly behind you in that number, you must be very worried, and you must have a means to get them to the polling station to vote. Otherwise, the older blocks, who are much more reliable in election day, they'll come and undo you. And for James Gyakye, his backers didn't show up, and those who did went for Gyakye.
Interesting. Okay, so on the whole issue of vote buying, per what you've put out, you say that on the question of whether voters witnessed, you've already indicated that a lot of people saw it, that 92% said yes, they got some inducement, while 8% said they did not. 72% of voters said they received inducement from both MPP and NDC, while 15% said they received theirs from the MPP and 13% said they got it from the NDC. However, the poll shows that of those voters who received inducement from both the MPP and NDC, 61% voted for James Gyakye, that's for the NDC, and 39% voted for Charles Opoku for the NPP. For those who received inducement from the NDC, 73% voted for James Gyakye, while 29% voted for Charles Opoku. But for those who got inducement from the MPP, only 58% voted for Charles Opoku, while 42% voted for James Gyakye. So it means that there were some intervening factors that played a role other than the inducement. What could it have been?
Yes, there were other factors. For example, we looked at how they perceived the two candidates. Was he people's man? Was he people who helped the people in the community? Was it because of the government performance? Or is it because of the community work that these people engage in? The vote buying itself, or the thought of persecution, and so on and so forth. 3 or 2 key factors are here very important. One, for those who said that they felt the government was not treating this question right, 91% of them went and voted for the situation. 91%. And only 6% voted for Charles Opoku. For those who said that they were angered by the vote buying, 80% went for the situation, compared to 19% for Charles Opoku. So these two factors, which are very critical, really played part in MP losing that constituency.
Mr. Danko, are you with me?
I am with you.
Great. So it means that though people took money, they voted for Mr. Kwesi because of persecution. Can we then say that was because the people felt, well, in my heart of heart, I feel Mr. Kwesi is the right person to lead us, not necessarily because government was persecuting him.
It's a mixture of all those things. And I think what happened is that those who went for J.T. Kwesi actually wanted to go for him anyway, regardless. I don't think the vote buying really swayed any minds in Assin North. If anything, it probably made it worse in terms of those liberal or those who were kind of right-thinking voters who may be angered by what was going on.
Oh, okay.
So we don't think the vote buying really played a critical role in winning the election for NDC. The people were fixed in their mind as what they wanted.
Okay, interesting. If we look at this, can we say that, well, then the future looks bright for Ghana because people will take inducement but will not vote based on the inducement but according to conscience?
Absolutely. I believe so. I truly believe so. And I believe that when they count their losses from Assin North, they may desist.
Oh, okay. So you assume that
I'm hopeful.
You are hoping that going forward, parties will not induce electorate.
No, they will do, but the returns will probably be negative.
Okay. Okay. So for parties who will be looking at your research, what kind of takeaways do you expect them to pick from this work?
I think they should realize that voters of 2024 are not the same as people who voted in 1996. We have a very smart voters these days. Very smart, very discerning. They are quiet and looking, and they shouldn't mistake them to be not reasonable or what would I would say, not discerning. They are very discerning.
Okay, interesting, Mr. Dankwa. I'm grateful to you for joining us here on our show. Mr. Dankwa is Executive Director for the Global Info Analytics. Joining us is Professor Aludi Seidu, who is head of the Political Science Department at the University of Ghana, and Mausi Dumenu, Senior Programs Officer and Elections Team Lead for CDD Ghana. Grateful to you, gentlemen, for joining us. Let me start with you, Mausi. This obviously is good news for the country when people will take money and still vote on their conscience, right?
All right, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think the outturn sends a very good signal that, I mean, times have changed and that inducements is not the way forward for our politics, our elections, and our democracy. And so with this issue, I mean, vote buying, I would say, is not a new phenomenon in our body politics. It's been around for some time now. And I mean, with each party election, we tend to see a lot more of vote buying within our elections. But when it comes to by-elections in particular, because practically all the party machinery and everybody's moving into a small space for election, we tend to see a lot more of aggravated issues of, I mean, a lot more of the negative issues are being aggravated. Okay. So when it comes to vote buying, for instance, I mean, we've held 2 by-elections in the last few months, and it's very clear to me, I mean, compared to previous elections and then compared to previous by-elections, that the incidence of vote buying have become very, very magnified. They have become more rampant, and the fact that it was being done blatantly and then glaringly in public domain without any recourse for anything shows the level of impunity by which this negative phenomenon had attained. And so if it's been done openly and I mean people brag about it and then talk about it openly, then I mean it means that it has a lot of negative connotations in terms of how our democracy can develop. Because we need to have people that are being elected for based on the ideas that they have, based on what they can do for the people, based on problems that they can solve.
Okay.
And not in terms of how much they can give or, I mean, outbid the other person to win the elections. And so that signal that we got from Assin North, even though, I mean, on the face of it, it looks like yes, it sends out positive signals, and I believe that that positive signals. I think my previous speaker earlier alluded that going forward, it may not change, not necessarily change, but then at least that signal has been sent. And so that means that politicians now have to rethink their strategies around how they conduct their campaigns, and then get to know that citizens are becoming, I mean, some of you say that their eyes have become more open in quotes. And so these are things that we are beginning to throw in. But the whole point is that if um, voters are being induced. I mean, first of all, there's a law that actually criminalizes, bribery around elections. And so, if you look at Representation of the People's Law 1992, PADC Law 284, Section 33 of it, 34, 33, and 34. 33 actually deals with issues around bribing, so inducing voters to vote in a certain way, or not to even vote is even an offense in itself. And 34 deals with the whole issue about treating. And so there's actually a law that deals with in some parts it deals with this whole issue about vote buying. But interestingly, we've not seen so much in terms of prosecutions coming out of any of these cases, probably because yes, we see it and then we talk about it, but maybe nobody takes that step to actually report the case and provide very good evidence that will incriminate perpetrators of this crime. And so we've seen this issue fester all these years, and then now we are seeing it being done with impunity and then without recourse to anybody around. And so that is where the dangers are, and that is where the problem is. And I'm glad that we are having this conversation. Almost about 2 weeks after the elections, it hasn't died down as in previous issues. And I'm even glad that now there's a bit of some empirical information from empirical evidence from Global Info Analytics that is giving us more inkling as to how the vote buying, its effect on the elections, and so that becomes a good basis for some baseline for us to look at how the trend will even go on in the near future.
So in terms of prosecution, what are your expectations? Now that we saw people on video say that I took money from ABC, what do you expect going forward?
Okay, so for me, what I recall from the NDC's internal election that they held earlier on was that I saw a bit of some interest from the Office of the Special Prosecutor, who had taken on an interest in trying to clamp down on issues around vote buying and all that. And so we would expect that once that was done from that point onwards, we'd expect that it will not just be something that would stop there. And I think in the election for the district chief executives also, that issue also came up where the OSP took on a number of cases. Took on a case, I think, in Joaben also. I think just saw Joaben, I've just forgotten the constituency. The district, sorry. And so we also expect that kind of follow-up with that kind of initiative that been taken by the Office of the Special Prosecutor to clamp down on the issue of vote buying within our elections.
Okay.
And that should not stop with it. And we need to know, for instance, the extent to which the previous investigation for the cases have gone to. The public needs to know, and we need to know how far it has gone and what the next steps are in terms of that. And so if an example is made of anybody that was prosecuted, and I mean the case comes to its logical conclusion, and let's assume there's anybody is jailed or anybody is fined or anything from that particular case, at least we would have an example just so that it will be the basis for deterring other offenders. And so for us, the case that we're trying to make is that the Office of the Special Prosecutor had taken on a good cause, and that there's a need for citizens to support this process and end this cause. But in addition to that, we also want to talk about the fact that there should be some extensive education by the media, by civil society organizations, by well-meaning people to educate citizens about the dangers of vote buying. Because if you are selling your votes, you are selling your future invariably. Because I mean that means you've taken your cake now, and so the developments and then the other aspirations that you want to see your representative undertake in the near future. You've shortchanged yourself for some patterns now. And so we need to have that kind of conversations that are ongoing, sensitization of the public around the issues, so that people get to understand what the issues are when it comes to vote buying, and then they will not see it as something that become an everyday part of our lives. And so people are just sitting and then waiting for election period to come for them to exact some form of pound of flesh from politicians. I don't think that's the way for us to go. But in addition to that, there should also be a bit more of education around, or some form of sensitization around, how can citizens also gather compelling evidence around these processes. Because a lot of times we see videos and all that going on when it comes to, all sort of a negative public phenomenon, like the vote buying that we are talking about now. But sometimes some of these videos that may probably be submitted as evidence, maybe a lot of it may become inadmissible and all that. And so how do we then, find creative ways of, letting citizens and then well-meaning people be able to gather compelling evidence that can support the work of, let's say, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and then other law enforcement agencies that are keen on clamping down on this issue.
Okay. Let me bring in Professor Alidu Seidu, who is the head of Political Science Department of the University of Ghana. Prof, grateful that you could join us here. Now, per what the Global Info Analytics is picking up, they say that young voters between the ages of 18 and 24 and 25-35, where Charles was winning by average of 11 and constituted the largest voting bloc, did not bother to show up to vote. And those who showed up ended up voting for James Jachikwason by a landslide, 23% margin. Now, the reliable older voters also show increase in their turnout compared to the final poll, and they voted massively for James Jachikwason, winning 10.25%. What does it mean when you have older people turning up in their numbers to vote than younger people?
Okay, thank you so much, and good afternoon to your listeners and viewers as well. If you look at the democracy as a system of government, we have always maintained, backed by research, that it is a process of demand and supply. And over the years, the demand is the people's aspirations, wishes, demand for developmental projects, employment, and all those things. That is fed into the political system. And the supply is what governments are able to provide. Projects, interventions, programs, creating jobs to address the impulse that is fed into the political system as a form of an output. But over the years, and specifically in developed countries, you've seen that demands have actually outstripped supply. Most of the demands of the citizens are not able to, the system or politicians or governments have not been able to meet the demands that constantly come from the citizens since the beginning of our democratic dispensation, but largely in the Fourth Republic. Issues of corruption, issues of unemployment, issues of economic well-being, creating an enabling environment for people to realize their potential, respect for freedoms, civil liberties, and all those things have been declining. If you look at global indices that reach Ghana and all those things. So you tend to see that high level of apathy. What then motivates a young man like me to go out and vote when I finished school like 10 years ago and I'm still looking for a job? The idea was that I will have elect a government that I believe will be able to provide jobs for me or create an enabling environment for me to start something on my own. So over the years, if I don't see this thing happening and I only see the politician being able to improve on his living standards and live larger than what he earns, then I have no business deciding to go out to vote. So people believe that, the young people believe that we have to take our destiny into our own hands, and voting for these people is just to create another opportunity for another person to come and live better life than I do. So it's not surprising. And they constitute the bulk of our voter population, but also the bulk of the unemployed population in the country. So it stands to reason that if the Global Info Analytics are able to make these findings, It just vindicate the fact that the ability of the political system to dispense benefit in response to people's civic actions and civic duties, including coming out to queue and vote, has not returned much result. So people now think that I rather stay at home than just suffer and come and then vote and then get nothing in return. So I think to some extent it vindicates people's frustration and apathy and dissatisfaction with the political system and its ability to self-regulate and provide benefits that are due citizens over time.
Which of course is the focus of this whole thing, is that, well, you saw a lot of people said they saw both parties, the NDC and the NPP, giving money, but they took it and didn't vote according to the monies that they've been given or the inducement. They voted based on their own convictions. That bodes well for the future of our democracy, isn't it?
I think it's good if we are able to have this thing happening. It's a kind of protest vote, protest to the strategy that political parties now use over the years as a weapon of winning elections. So monetization has now become a weapon of elections. And people now think it's a strategy that can be used to be able to win elections. And when citizens demonstrate that they are more rational than just this belittling act of their intelligence, then politicians will now realize that that strategy doesn't work anymore. And they'll begin to look for an alternative strategy that respects the intelligence of the ordinary voter and give them that element of worth in terms of trying to win elections. And basically, if you look at the context, we have an economic situation that is very hurting, and people are trying in very difficult ways to make ends meet. And then all of a sudden, political parties descend in your constituency and begin throwing money out there. If you are somebody who has been looking for resources, who is hungry, definitely you take it. And when you take it and you decide to vote differently from the way people had expected, people will now know that it's high time we started looking at alternative strategies that brings inclusive development, that respects the true worth of the electorate, and that speaks to reason, that can be rationalized or justified, rather than just doing it. And the reason why politicians keep repeating this is because maybe it has worked in the past, that at the last minute, when you come and throw money at them, they will take it and vote for you. So when we begin to vote in the form of a protest to this strategy and let them know that it won't work, they will look for an alternative strategy other than that. But two, it also denies people to hold ability to hold government to account. If I vote for you based on the promises that you promise to, the promises that you have for me, the manifesto, the developmental plan, at the end of the day, I can hold you to account if developmental plans are not strictly followed, or if the programs that you have promised me are not executed. So there's an element of accountability there that deepens our democracy. But if I come and buy your vote, I just give you money and vote for me, then you have no business telling me to, there's even nothing to ask for, because I've already bought your ability to decide who should win or not win. So there's no post-electoral accountability because you voted for me because of the money I gave you, or because of the flash screen I gave you, because of the Wellington boot or cutlass or weedy size that I gave you. And that ends the relationship there. But if you assess political parties based on their policies and manifestos and their ability to programmatic actions, then it's a continuous change of what? Accountability process. So you renew the social contract based on the way you vote with respect to what they have promised you. And you can hold them to account as the processes move and their ability to dispense these benefits in a manner that is befitting of the status of the electorate and the constituencies that these by-elections are held. But once I take the money and I vote for you, the contract ends there. You have bought your vote and you can no longer hold me to account moving forward. Okay. So I think when we begin to let them know that we know governance is a continuous process and not just a one-off event, and I'm not going to sell my conscience and my vote for you. And that strategy will never work again. Politicians and political parties will begin to rethink strategy that is worth considering the intelligence of the people who vote for them.
Okay, so stay with me. Let me come to the studio where I've been joined by Kofi Akpalu. He is founder and leader of the LPG party, and they were there as well. You were in Assin North, and you agree with this. This is obviously a good thing for parties like yours who say, well, we don't have the funding like the NDC and NPP, and therefore it's about time we demonetize our elections. This is good. How do we maintain the gains we've had from Assin North?
Actually, I'm from a different point of view.
Okay.
In the sense that what actually happened at the place is different from the way you guys are presenting it here today.
Really?
Yeah. You see, because NDC won the election, people think because NDC is not in government, so they did not pay much or something of that sort. It's not true. They started the inducement. They started way before NPP came to the scene, you know, because they were there earlier, because they had their candidate before NPP had their candidate. So they were giving, you know, so they influenced the people to the extent that they were, it's like they had a contract with them to vote for them.
Okay.
You get a point. So the people took the money and voted. Not that they took the money and decided to vote on their conscience or whatever. It's not true.
So you're saying that the NDC paid more than what the NPP paid?
Oh, yes. They started the payment even before NPP came in. It started way. Because I was at the constituency. You know, every corner of the constituency, I was there. You know, there's no single area or community that I did not visit. I visited every corner. And you go to a place, they will tell, oh, Charlie, man, temo, because many that they've received what they I mean.
But if they say you didn't come early, it doesn't mean the NDC.
It means
the NDC
they cannot change their mind.
Yes, but I'm saying that
because
it doesn't mean
somebody's money.
It doesn't mean it was the NDC.
No, it was NDC. I saw them.
But MPP could have also gone there.
And the MPP came late. So it's like the people have taken everything already. So what an MPP came to give was something like a top-up. I'm telling you what happened.
Really?
Yes.
But we don't have evidence of that. What
No.
we do have evidence of
but
what happened on the D-Day.
I'm so happy, my brother. I'm so happy Musa Dankwa, is that correct?
Yeah, Musa Dankwa, yes.
Said, some people said they took some from MPP, they took some from NDC.
Yeah.
So what I'm telling you is that, listen to me, my brother.
Okay.
You were not there, I was there.
Okay.
You know, I saw them feely. You know, I was traveling. The first time I met that was I was traveling from Kushia to Senchem. And then I got to Abotre. And over there, they were giving them cutlasses, walleting boots, weedicide, fertilizers, cloth, and the rest. And money. And DC were doing that. They did all, every corner. They were distributing these items.
But the MPP didn't do it?
That time, MPP had not come. So when they came, they also decided to distribute the same items to the people, plus money. You know, they were sharing cement, yeah, to the electorates and as well as to the communities. Cement, maybe a truckload, and then build community center, do this. Everything, they were doing everything.
We never heard of what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
What we did see was the governing party constructing roads, commissioning this, doing that. That's what we saw. We didn't see what you're talking about.
No. What you saw, maybe you saw what the cameras can capture. My brother, the truth is what I'm telling you. They were sharing these items. Even the day before the election, they were sharing salt and Maggi cubes, and then, herrings, amani, and Kobe, Kobe, tilapia.
Even Kobe.
Yes, I'm telling you, this is what I saw. They were plus money, 100 cedis, they were sharing. Both parties were sharing like that in the eve to the election. Then I thought that was enough. Then the day of election, they were giving money at the polling station. So they call you, they give you the money, give you half. You vote, you snap your vote, come and show it to them, and then they give you the balance.
Did you see people snapping their ballot? Because that's illegal. That's against the laws. You cannot snap I'll take photograph of your vote.
It's illegal. Only if LPG or maybe CPP may have done that, it would have been illegal. But NPP and NDC, who are going to arrest them?
So you saw people do that?
Exactly. Even Samson Nahi Bodi MP, even he was on Adom. I think you were there that day. He was on Adom, and he confessed that he is the lead prompter. He was going to the various homes, waking the people in the midnight, prompting them, giving them money, and then taking. Who gave him that role to play? That he should go and give people.
What did you give?
I didn't have anything to give.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you gave nothing?
Oh, yes, I gave nothing.
Oh, but we heard that we saw you giving bread. You gave bread.
No, can you give me one evidence that I gave even a slide of bread?
Oh, but the other day when I spoke to you, you said you gave bread. The bread was for
me.
You never gave bread?
No way. I didn't give anybody any dime. You see, because when I was attacking Samson Nahi, and then his followers behind him, they say, "Oh, Apalu, you two are giving tea bread." They just said it just like that. And then the media, the lazy as they are, they pick it and then make headlines out of it. So please, let's be serious with this one, okay? Samson Nahi admitted on Adom platform is not a small platform. For him, by admitting that he was the lead prompter giving people money and all those kind of stuff, So when I asked him, why was he giving them when he said it was TNT? So why in our laws that says that I should give somebody TNT to go and vote?
So stay with me, and I still have Professor Alidu with me. I still have all our other panelists with us. We will delve deeper into this. But on the day of the election, we were speaking to some of the electorate who were telling us what they've seen or what they saw. Listen. Well, so that's the sad reality there, that during elections, both parties were pointing accusing fingers at each other for paying inducement to the electorate. The NDC said you were paying, the NPP says you were paying. Well, I'm still in the studio with Mr. Kofi Akpalu. On the line, we have Professor Alidu Seidu, who is head of the political department, University of Ghana. We also have our CDD representative with us, and I still think we have the Info Global Analytics executive director with us. Now, so you're saying that what the survey is putting out, that people voted on their conscience,
no, it's not,
cannot be factual.
No.
Okay, fair enough.
No.
But it inspires, even though you're saying it's not factual. But if we get an election where people will vote on their conscience, not by inducement, that will be better for our democracy, isn't it?
Fantastic.
How do we get there?
We only get there when we have an independent police administration.
Independent police administration.
Other than that, we're going nowhere.
What would they do?
Yeah, because they will not be afraid of MPP or NDC. And then the media will also support it. You see, sometimes the media is a problem because when they arrest somebody, the media will hype it and then they will push people to go to the police headquarters, blah, blah, harassing the police and all those kind of stuff. You understand? So people in MPP and NDC cannot be arrested in this country. So that's why they have their free will to do whatever they are doing. We are not practicing democracy now. Currently, what we are practicing is moneycracy. You get the money, you get. Other than that, you are not going nowhere. Even at the primaries, we all witness that. Even it has come to the extent that even kids in secondary schools, SHS and universities are even inducing people to vote for them. And it becomes some like acceptable norm. So we need to tackle this canker very serious. Other than that, we are not building any future.
Professor Edu, I mean, you've been around, you understand some of these things so well. Mr. Akpalu says, well, it is not true that people voted on their conscience. They were induced because of what he saw on the ground. Do you agree with what he's saying? And if that's the case, how do we get out of this conundrum?
So I think it's not fair to just paint one party as the one who distributed money. Yes, evidence that we have gathered indicates both the dominant parties did that, and not just in Assin North. Elections we've had in the 4th Republic is becoming monetization, or money and elections have become like Siamese twins in Ghana. They are conjoined. I'm not sure where exactly, but they move together. And I would be surprised if Mr. Akpalu and his party had the kind of money maybe NDC or NPP people had now. They wouldn't even have also think of doing what they are doing now just to win votes. So I think it's endemic, and we need to find a way to deal with it.
Okay.
And I agree that our economic situations has actually exacerbated the practice, but I agree with Mr. Akpalu that we need to enforce existing laws on this issue. What does the law say about trying to induce people to vote for you? And if there's evidence that this actually happened, what should be done? Without consideration to the political party that's involved or the individual that is involved. Once we begin to crack the whip and enforce our laws in a manner that it is stipulated in the Constitution, we'll begin to have some of these things gradually reduced, if not completely eradicated. But voting on one's conscience or being influenced is very difficult to say, because ideally, people thought that the monies that they were receiving will have influenced the way they voted. Mostly people will keep quiet and make a determination based on the benefits that has been dispensed to them. But you saw in most of the interviews that most of these media houses did, people were very vocal that I have been given ABCD to vote this way, but I took it and I didn't vote that way. So people were very loud and open about their attempts to induce and to influence them, but they still stood their grounds. So in that case, you cannot say that they were influenced by monetary considerations.
Okay.
If they really wanted to have voted the way that they were induced to vote, they would have kept quiet and vote the manner that they were supposed to vote and keep the money. I'm not saying that some people didn't change their mind because of the benefits that they received. Yes, there could be a number of people whose voter behavior might have been influenced by the kind of inducement that they received. But there were equally a larger number of people who also took the monies and refused to vote the way they were being suggested to vote by being given the money. So it's still kind of an endemic that we need to confront head on.
Yeah.
And I believe that it's not just the responsibility of political parties or security agencies, but it also starts with we, the electorates, that we are able to stand up to politicians and political parties that distribute benefit to buy our votes.
But Prof, if you leave it to us electorate and the political party, we've seen how that plays out. The political parties are willing to supply. The electorate are willing to receive. When there is demand, when there is supply, of course there will be demand for it. So if we leave it to that, we won't go anywhere, isn't it?
No, I've mentioned at the beginning that it's now a tool, it's not a weapon of elections. Okay. And once in every election, people work with strategies that has proven to have been successful. So it's repeated. It's repeated because there's evidence to show that it works. So over the years, if we are able to, we the voters are able to prove to the politicians that if party A and B come and give me money, then at the end of the day, party C wins, then we do it repeatedly. They will now know that this strategy is no longer working. And that will force them to change their strategy. But once we do it, and they do it, and it keeps working, everybody wants to work with the strategy that is successful and tested or proven to be true. So it also have to start with us to now prove to them that even if you do this, what you had expected will not happen. Then when it happens consistently, they'll now know that, oh, now I think the people are now becoming aware or conscious of what we are doing, and we have to change a strategy. So I think it's a holistic approach from the electorates, from the security agencies doing their work impartially, to the political parties.
Prof, I think your mic has muted. If you can unmute for us, we'll be grateful. Professor, I think your mic has muted, so kindly unmute for us so we can follow you. But I'm sure that there are laws that frown upon inducement, during elections in this country. Mustn't be the case that the laws will work. Demino is still with us here. He's with the CDD. Isn't it the case that the laws rather should bite to serve as a deterring factor to people, politicians, and voters alike, who would want to be given money to go and vote in a certain in a certain direction? Mausi,
yes, I have unmuted now. So just like you're saying, I mean, the law should bite. I mean, but the laws will not bite themselves. So, I mean, it needs to be enforced by our law enforcement agencies. And so, I mean, the police is one, because they were on the ground, particularly in Assin North, and then even with Kumewu. And so there are quite a number of cases that I'm sure a lot of them have seen and all that. So that comes to the whole point about there's a law, because I know, and I think I read it out earlier on, the Representation of the People's Law, 1992 PNDC Law 284. So Section 33 actually deals with the whole issue about bribery of voters by candidates and then their agents. And so, it spells out the issues in there. It also even goes to the extent of dealing with treating, which is Section 34. And so, I mean, there are laws already in place that needs to be implemented. But here's the case, is the enforcement of it that often, you don't really see much attempt from law enforcement agencies. So that comes to the earlier point that I made, that we saw a bit of some effort from the Office of the Special Prosecutor to take head on to take head on issues around vote buying, where there's clear evidence and all that. And so it means that more of it has to be done. We don't just have to limit it to, the previous cases, but we should try, and then the office should go into this particular case, this particular election, and look at, several of the cases, and then see which of them they can prosecute. And it shouldn't just be on one side, but it should be from across both sides, both NPP and NDC, who were fingered to be part of, who were fingered to be leading this crusade of vote buying. And so it should cut across from both sides, so that we try and then make an example out of persons that were found culpable. Because if you don't make an example out of anybody, that is how come these acts will fester. And then for me, as far as I know, I don't really know anybody who has been prosecuted with this law, or who has been prosecuted for vote buying. I stand to be corrected. And prosecuted to the extent of the case going through the full process of going through the full process at the law court, through trial and all that, with somebody being found guilty. I've not come across that case, and I'm yet to see that. And I believe that that deterrence needs to be set as we go into the next election, because once nobody gets to be punished for any wrongdoing, it will continue to breed a lot more impunity. And that's what we've seen with a lot more of some other incidents around elections. So, for example, political violence and all that we see around elections. Simply because people are not punished. And so, once I know I will not be punished for anything, I can go on and then do it the next time. And that is what we've seen. And the whole incidents around vote buying has become very dominant, to the point that now they don't hide and do it. but then they do it openly,
in the
just
open.
even sometimes very close to police stations. And so that is where the whole issue is very worrying.
Okay. I'm grateful to you for joining us.
So
Mausi
thank you very
Dumenu
much for the
is
time.
with the CDD. Well, Mr. Akpalu, so the law is clear.
Yeah.
If you look at Political Parties Law 2000, Act 574, and the Representation of the People's Law 1992, PNDC Law 284, it makes engaging in and buying and selling of vote in any way punishable by law. We are not seeing this. You say that an independent police service can do this, but it takes an attorney general to say that I want to prosecute this because I've seen one or two.
Yeah.
So going forward, in way of stemming out this practice of people buying people's vote, what you are a politician, realistically, how must we approach this?
Yeah, it will be very difficult to implement these laws in this country, especially if it happens that the Attorney General is the person who has committed that crime is coming from the same party where Attorney General belongs to.
We have the special prosecutor now.
Oh.
He doesn't belong to any party.
He was appointed by NPP government.
But it doesn't, he is independent.
So,
it doesn't mean he was allegiant.
Yeah. So Professor Stephen
Frimpong Boateng,
disclosure, what happened to it? He mentioned a lot of people's name. What arrest was he able to do? You okay? So you see, it won't work.
Okay.
It's not an independent mind. Okay? It's not an independent mind.
So there's no way out of our problem?
No.
We can solve it?
It will be difficult. So far as we have NPP and NDC dominating our system, it will be very difficult. And that's where the media too is also pushing us to, because the media is making us getting divided more, because they will come to the studio, they will bring NPP, NDC, and then they'll be as if they are the only political parties in this country. So it's like they are rather funding this issue. So we need to look at it very, very critical. Okay. And other than that, the future, we don't have any future.
Okay.
But I can tell you, going back to even this current district assembly elections, they've started giving inducement. They'll come to a community, they'll bring all the people, like they are offering them free what do you call it? NHIS.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Free registration.
Free registration.
To NHIS.
Yeah. Why? Why should we entertain all this kind of stuff?
Okay.
You see, this is something that we should look at.
Okay. All right.
GFA elections, the same thing happens there. Bribery and corruption. Any election in this country, GPRTU elections, is fraud. Everywhere. So I don't know the kind of people we are. We need to sit down. If we want to develop this country, like the Americans or the Germans have done,
okay,
that place needs to be looked at.
Okay. I'm grateful that you could come in here. Kofi Akpalu is the founder and leader of the LPG, Liberal Party of Ghana. This is The Pulse. Stay with us. We have a lot to share with you here. We'll take a quick break. We will be back.